You ever feel like you and your partner are stuck in a loop? Like you're having the same exact fight over and over, just with different details? Well, you are definitely not alone. Today, we're going to dive into those hidden patterns, the secret dances that happen in our relationships, all through the lens of the amazing psychotherapist, Esther Perel.
All right, so let's start with this core problem that so many of us face in our relationships, often without even realizing it. It's what you might call a paradox of effort.
I mean, really think about this for a second. We pour all this creativity, all this focus, all our best energy into our jobs, right? Into our hobbies, our projects. But then, what's left over at the end of the day? What do we bring home to the person who's supposed to be our number one? Perel says this imbalance, it's like a slow poison for the relationship. And this is that paradox in action. We give our A game to our work, but we expect our most important relationship to just survive on the leftovers. It's like we treat it like a cactus, right? Something that can just survive in the desert without any water. But let's be real, nothing and no one can truly thrive on neglect.
Okay, so if that's the problem, what's the diagnosis? How do we actually understand why we keep having these same fights? Well, Perel gives us this really powerful way to look at it. She calls it the conflict dance.
And this idea is so important. It's called the figure 8 loop. And what it shows us is that the thing you think you're fighting about, the money, the chores, who's going to make dinner, that's almost never the real issue. The real issue is the pattern. It's that predictable back and forth dance that just keeps you both stuck in the same spot.
Okay, check out this classic example she gives. Picture this. He gets home from work and immediately withdraws. Just buries his head in his laptop. She feels him pull away, so she starts trying to connect, asking questions. But he feels that as pressure, like it's a test or something, so he pulls back even more, which of course makes her feel even more alone. So she pursues even harder. You see the loop? It just feeds on itself over and over again.
And here's what's so wild about this. These two roles, the pursuer and the distancer, they're not really opposites. Perel explains they're actually two sides of the same coin. It's like each person is outsourcing a basic human need to the other. Think about it. The distancer doesn't have to deal with their own need for closeness because the pursuer is doing all the work for them. It creates this weirdly perfect but totally dysfunctional balance.
All right, let's keep going, because it's not always about those big explosive fights. In fact, a lot of the time, the real damage happens in the quiet, everyday moments. This is what we can call the slow fade.
And this is where that whole relationship paradox we mentioned earlier really hits home. When you're only bringing your leftovers to your partner, you create this feeling that Perel calls ambiguous loss. And it's that really specific kind of modern type of loneliness, isn't it? The feeling of sitting right next to someone who is just not really there.
And it happens in these tiny moments. That half-hearted while you're scrolling. The text they sent that you saw but didn't reply to. Every one of those is what experts call a missed bid for connection. It's like making a tiny withdrawal from the emotional bank account you share. And one or two might not seem like a big deal, but over time, yeah, it's death by 1,000 cuts.
And let's be honest, whether we mean to or not, when we're on our phones, instead of being present with our partner, it sends one single, very powerful message. And that message is, something else is more important than you right now.
So, okay, we've talked a lot about the problem. But what do we do about it? How do you fight that slow fade? What's the actual solution? Well, this is where Perel flips the script and challenges us to stop being passive and start being active.
We have this story we tell ourselves, this myth that people just fall out of love. But Perel says that's not really how it works. It's not that the feeling just disappears. What really happens is that we stop doing love. We stop the actions, the practices that create and sustain it. Love isn't some passive state of being. It's something you have to actively build every single day.
So how do you actually do love? The key for Perel is cultivating what she calls aliveness. And it's all about finding a balance between two really deep human needs. On one hand, we need security, safety, predictability. You can think of these as our roots. But we also crave novelty, adventure, surprise. Those are our wings. A thriving relationship needs both. When we get lazy and just bring home the leftovers, we starve either the roots or the wings, and that's when the spark starts to fade.
Which brings us to probably the most powerful and practical piece of advice from all of Perel's work. If you're feeling stuck in that figure 8 dance, how in the world do you get out?
Okay, here it is. This is the secret. You can't make your partner change their steps. You just can't. You can try, you can beg, you can demand, you can criticize, but what usually happens, They just dig their heels in even deeper, right? The only person whose behavior you have total 100% control over is you.
And that is the magic trick. Because a relationship is a system. It's a dance with two people. So when you change your step, the whole dance has to change. Your partner literally can't do the same old move if you're not doing yours. The pattern is broken. If the pursuer takes a step back, the distancer suddenly has to figure out what to do next. You change your move, you change the entire dance.
So I want to leave you with this one question to think about. You don't have to fix everything overnight. That's not the point. Just ask yourself, what is one small step, just one thing, in your side of the dance that you can change, starting today?